Hi there, I'm Robin. This is my website, Ciprocal's year in review. So this website was a one-year storytelling sort of experiment where I just published one thing every month around what I was going to do. I started out with the intention of making it an audio format, so the first few are audio, but as I went on I just decided to integrate the work I was doing into it, so it's just a place where I can catalog what I'm doing and share it in a public place. So this is it, and I'm just gonna get right into it. The first month, January, started with a series of phone calls. A friend of mine, Robin Dirks, was excited about something he was calling Earth Regeneration Learning Village. And this was something that was integrating two projects that we were both come from. One is Art of Hosting, particularly the Art of Hosting Learning Village, which is focused on organizational processes and how people work together and synergize together. And the other is ecosystem restoration camps, which is more of a approach to landscape restoration, bit of a kind of grassroots, community-based approach. The idea was to integrate these two into something he was calling Earth Regeneration Learning Village. There were a series of conversations that we went through just to kind of develop the idea of the project a little bit more. And so these are with 3 people that were involved in the projects, and these are recordings of phone calls that I had and edited. And so you're welcome to listen to these. Through it, we went through some of the details of what needed to be defined in order to put this together. We had one gathering in late February. The organizers did in Freiburg, Germany, and I happened to be in Europe at the time, so I was able to make it to that. And it never really took off past that, but Robin, the guy who organized this, ended up starting a co-living community in Eastern Germany, and they're doing work around developing that larger community there. So you can listen to that there. So that was January. February, I was in the middle of a lot of work in Amsterdam and Morocco, and I didn't end up publishing any of that. Instead, I published a phone conversation I had earlier with my friend Ian Dates, who lives in Corrales, New Mexico. And I don't even think right now Ian knows that this is on the internet. And for anyone else, I would ask permission. But there's some kind of tacit agreement between Ian and myself that I'm going to help him get recognized, because he's such a brilliant mind and a Renaissance man. And yeah, for some reason I feel somewhat called to proclaim him to the world. So anyway, this is a great phone call. It kind of starts off with a conflict between him and his brother's wife. They all live together, Sebla, who's from Ethiopia, where they bury the dead under houses, and she was pregnant at the time, and Ian was doing repairs in the bathroom where he had to open up the floor. She was quite concerned that the spirit of the dead under the house would affect her birth, and so the conversation goes in a lot of different areas, but it's worth listening to. It's a fun conversation. That was February. So March, I was planning on going to Vietnam for a Art of Hosting Learning Village an Asian art of hosting learning village, but because of COVID, I ended up not going, and instead going back to America, to my parents' house, where I facilitated a meeting to help organize a regional hub of ecosystem restoration camps in California. And at the end of that, I committed to making this ecosystem restoration camps designer's manual. You can get a link to it here. The designer's manual is the result of a bunch of interviews I did with the organizers of the first ecosystem restoration camp in Spain. I was there and a part of that, and basically invited conversations around the question, if you could go back in time and make a roadmap to build one of these camps, what would you tell yourself at the beginning? And I consolidated all those interviews into this designer's manual, and it goes through the processes that you might want to consider if you're starting an ecosystem restoration camp. So we go through the vision, planning, the different roles and responsibilities you need, how you form a team, the importance of outreach at the beginning. That was a big mistake. We didn't put enough outreach at the beginning of the camp, and because of that, it had a very strong Northern European bend and culture within the context of Spain, and it ended up being very difficult to integrate with the Spanish community. So make sure you prioritize outreach. Organizational legal structure, your plan, finance, roles and responsibilities. Here's some stuff to consider when you're thinking about camp infrastructure, whether to make it mobile or stationary is an important question you should ask. Your restoration plan. Let's see. The maturation of your project and how to plan for that. Yeah. So that's that. Also, while I was at my parents' house, I got really interested, because it's where I grew up. So I got really interested in kind of deepening my relationship with that place and understanding my origin place a little bit. So this is a painting I did, the view from the front steps of the house. This is a cul-de-sac across the street. This is where I learned how to ride my bicycle. The La Bayona Creek runs right behind these houses, which is now cement, but it was originally this really beautiful little creek that at some points connected with the LA River. The LA River would kind of, when there'd be a big monsoon, it might roll from one area to the other, but it was quite often went into the La Bayona Creek, which flowed into Marina del Rey and Playa del Rey and the wetlands out there. There's still a few wetlands, but it's pretty much all defunct. It's now a cement creek, and it goes straight into the ocean. The wetlands are fairly dry and pretty minuscule. It's been developed. This is an old newspaper clipping I found of the mountain. The Baldwin Hills are right behind the house. And these are some archaeological excavation. I was really interested in the tribal inhabitants of the area, the Tungva people, and imagining what life must have been like there before it was developed. It was lima bean fields, and then it was developed for housing for workers during World War II who worked in factories for the war. But anyway, yeah, it's an interesting area there because you have this creek that goes through, you have the wetlands, you have this kind of upland area. There's all these systems that come together. The tar pit area is not far away, so it's really the confluence of a lot of system, and I venture to guess it was really beautiful, really lush, and just quite a paradise to live in. This is Augustine Machado. He got the first land grant from Spain in this area where I grew up. His original home was just a few blocks away where Overland and the La Bayona Creek intersect. That's where he first built his first adobe home. This is his second one. The first one got flooded. And this is his brand, this one right here. This is the original brand. He was doing ranching. That's the brand from the place I'm from. So that's a little history of Culver City, where I'm from, near Los Angeles. It's in Los Angeles County. So I think I missed April. April was my birthday. I did a fast and a retreat in the Angeles Forest, somewhere I love very much, but I didn't publish anything about that. For June, some friends and I organized a little ceremony for the equinox, connecting the La Bayona Creek to the LA River. This is Shiku in a fox uniform. Shiku's in Hawaii now. But anyway, the idea was to have a little ceremony at one bend in the LA River. It was just Jessica and I who did that. Really early in the morning, we met there at 5 in the morning, and we had a ceremony and collected some of the LA River in water bottles and walked the old course where the river would intersect with the La Bayona Creek, and emptied that water back into La Bayona Creek. And we gathered with friends. We walked along the La Bayona Creek to where it meets the ocean and gathered with friends. There's Jessica, to celebrate the equinox and this little ceremony we did of connecting those two waterways. Later on, I bought a kayak and made this little carrier so I could explore the creek a little bit more. So here I am. I would bike over to the creek and put this on there and lock up my bike and paddle around the creek. So that was fun. Let's see. So that was the river people. So when I first got back to LA, I decided to join something called the Fire and Fungi Study Group. And that was this project hosted by a group called Co-Renewal. And we met weekly and invited experts on fire and fungi to come and speak to us. And through that, a few different projects fingered out. One was focusing on biosponges after a fire to soak up contaminants from toxic waste from, homes burning and that sort of thing. But then there was another project that I was involved with that was looking at high-intensity fires and their effect on, well, I'll get into it later. Anyway, that whole project inspired me a lot, and I was really curious about this whole approach where we started as a group just learning together, and all of these projects formed out of them. And I decided to kind of write down what I saw organically emerging, and I called it Project Innovation Study Groups. And this details how a Project Innovation Study Group functions and forms. What I can say, there's 4 phases to it. There's the call, the team forming, the learning, and then whatever kind of project forms out of it. And essentially what this is taking the startup model and turning it on its head, where startups start with a product or some kind of service and then build a team around that learn and then pull it out. This starts with a question and a team that just gets curious and learns together, building team capacities. And then through that process, develop a project together, and they already have a really good working process and trust in the team and that sort of thing. So that was my outline of what I saw happening, and you're welcome to use this if you want to start your own project innovation study group. It's right here. So the next month, I was wanting to create a space for my kind of professional work, and had the idea of starting a professional website. I never made the website, but I just kind of kept this here as my rough draft. So this is my professional website, doing consulting for mainly decentralized organizations and landscape stewardship organizations. So these are some of the folks I've worked for, and I go into a little bit of my background. This is me with this little stick they use in the Middle East for brushing your teeth. This is in Morocco. We were doing ecotourism and community resiliency workshops out there. So this talks a little bit about my background, and this talks about my services, workshops, evaluation, reporting, that sort of thing. This is me in Amsterdam working with the board, doing some strategic planning for upcoming phases. That's also for the project in Morocco, Perma Atlas. They're right here. Yeah. So the next month, this is September, I was contacted by Latifa and asked if I would write their stage 3 plan. So this is the Perma Atlas in Morocco, stage 3 plan. The first 2 phases were focused in one village, and stage 3 plan is essentially taking the skills and the learning from the one village and expanding it to a coalition of villages that all live along one watershed. And this is the plan, overview of phase 1 and 2, what we learned, our theory of change, and then this is the phase 3 plan, our targets, erosion control, supporting women, native plant nursery, demonstration sites, native plants, microfinancing. So yeah, you can see this here. Here's the earthwork portion, how we're wanting to work with women in the villages, how we're wanting to work with shepherds in the village. This has been really interesting. This has been my favorite part, is kind of exploring shepherds. I really think that's a critical part. Revegetation, microfinance, helping support local businesses, traditional cultures and practices. There's all kinds of practices that are becoming less and less celebrated, so they're really important to the community and the cohesion of that place, so supporting those. Yep. So as I was mentioning earlier, the Project Innovation Study Group was inspired by this fire and fungi study group that I was a part of. And one project was the biofilters, but another project was a soil re-inoculation project. And essentially, the question we were asking is, when you have these really high-intensity fires, they affect the soil microbiology, and it can take time for the microbiology, which is so essential for nutrient and water and communication across the landscape with plants to take place. And so what we did for this experiment was we found an area that wasn't burnt, that was quite intact soil microbiology, and we took some of the topsoil from that and made compost tea, where we ran some experiments looking at the effects of basically re-inoculating soil after a fire. one of the members of the group, Terry, she lost her home in the 2018 campfire up here in Concal, which is where I am right now, actually. And so we did the experiment there. Aside from Terry, I was the only person from the Fire and Fungi group that showed up, but all these people from Concal showed up. And there was an incredible synergy. This is a bit about our research, our methods, and hypothesis data and stuff like that. There's some images of that whole project. But really, what was most important was the synergy between Matthew, who lives and has been living on the land here, Eric, who's from Magalia, not far away, and Terry, whose land it is. The four of us just had this really incredible synergy. And the experiment went really well, and we weren't really satisfied with just doing the experiment, and so we wanted to keep doing work together afterwards. But here's clearing brush, preparing the plot sites. We put cedar trees in each of the plots, and we're basically measuring the growth of the cedar trees to see the difference between the different plots. We also put some fish we caught when we were fishing in the compost tea. So that was October. I went back to Concal the following month because we decided we wanted to start our own thing, and we called it the Concal Meadows Research Station. And this is a project, it's kind of multifaceted. This is our website. And essentially the project, there's two parts of it. One is we're building a sustainable eco-village here that is off the grid. But the other part of it is we're wanting to develop models that we can work with to support basically an ecological renaissance in this area, kind of a bioregional approach to regeneration. So here's our goals. This is a demonstration site as a short-term goal. We want to train stewards in different points around the area. So small teams, kind of like how we're a small team, we want to train other small teams to be doing experiments on their own sites in this region. And our long-term goal is to have coalitions of people all around this area that can come together with their trained teams that are already proficient in working together and have knowledge of landscape restoration in the area to come together for larger projects. This theory is heavily influenced by what's his name, Richard Bartlett, and his microsolidarity, his work on microsolidarity, which I have a link to it on the Ciprocal page. But so that's about. There's little bios of all four of us that you can read. It was fun putting this website together. A little bit about our research. Here you can read more about the soil re-inoculation. We're doing some research on hydrological recharging and some comparison study on fire resiliency management. There's some other stuff that we're planning on researching that aren't on the website yet. How you can get involved. We offer consulting. We'll be offering some events upcoming. And you can also support us by helping us with some of our wish list items. You can contact us here. That's the best way to connect in, is to just write us an email. Let us know that you're interested in getting involved. So that was November, which leads us to December. Here's the micro-solidarity link if you want to read more about that, which you'll be seeing through this video. Yeah, so that's been my year in review. There's been other things that didn't make it on the website, but this is a little chunk of my year. It's been a really fantastic year. I'm really looking forward to 2021. So this started as a 1-year experiment, and I'm planning on doing a second year. So I'll be doing something on Ciprocal starting at the end of January. And if you're interested, you're welcome to keep going. I really like the idea of doing YouTube videos and this kind of maybe integrating more of a video element into it. So I think it's likely that next year we'll have more of a video component to it. But yeah, I'm really excited about next year. Some of my goals for next year is being more, learning how to lift weights. I really, my posture is better when my muscles are more developed and I just feel a little bit more grounded. So I'm hoping to do weightlifting, get a little more focused on meditating. Plan on doing, taking up the woodwind instruments and learning Teshlahade, which is what they speak in Morocco. So perhaps I'll be publishing some of that stuff as well in the upcoming year. But yeah, thanks for tagging along and listening, and I'd love to hear feedback from you. Feel free to write me or comment on this video or whatever you like. Yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks. Bye.